Good morning. Today is the 29th day of Tammuz, the 18th of July.
And when you say Tehillim for today and tomorrow.
Thank you. And now we're going to come to the answer. But the answer is not the answer we want to hear yet. Because in order to understand the answer, he is now going to give us a long introduction to the relationship between a teacher and a student.
The prologue.
It's a prologue, it's an introduction, and it is a shortened, very terse version of what he did in his commentary on Shari Yichud from the Mittler Rebbe. You have to understand, Reb Hillel is the world's second biggest expert on this parable. The world's biggest expert was the Mittler Rebbe. And he wrote a whole book on it. It's called Shari Yichud. And it's his version of Shari Yichud Ve'emunah, in a certain sense. It wants to explain to you what it means to understand God's oneness. In order to explain that, he goes into the parable of the teacher and the student. And you have to know that Reb Hillel said, after he had studied with the Mittler Rebbe and he wrote the commentary and everything, he said that if Shlomo HaMelech would have known about this parable, he wouldn't have written Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, on a man and a woman, but rather on a teacher and a student. Because it's actually the relationship between a teacher and a student holds more of the particulars and details of the relationship between man and God than does the relationship between a man and a woman. And it also, when you think about it a little bit, it makes sense. But in any case, so you have to understand that for him he's basically going to use everything he learned there, and he's going to apply it here, and it's going to take us 2-3 pages to get through it. So you have to get through this. It's not terribly difficult, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because there's a ton of detail in it, even for this abridged version, because we want to get to the answer. But you have to understand this is a necessary stage to get to the answer. Ulavin Eitev, we're on page Zayin. So we have all these questions about what is Golus now, and it can't be that it doesn't. It's absurd that it would be Hashem being angry all this time, and what's going on, and so on. ולהבין היטב איך מתורצים שתי השאלות על ידי זה. The two questions again are, what was the initial reason for the people being in exile in Egypt, and why does the exile get worse as time goes on? To understand this, הנה יש להקדים עניין סדר ההפטרות. So now we're going back to what we started with. Remember, we started with the Psikta, which is why this thing is called Ita B'Psikta, upon which the tour is based, and the Seder of Haftaros, the order of the selection from the prophets on these Shabbases. הנה יש להקדים עניין סדר ההפטרות הנ"ל, ג' דפורענותא, שמבואר סדרן בשם ספרים הקדושים בהתחלת המאמר. And we said that the Arizal already explained that this had to do with the ascent or the disappearance, ascending in order to disappear from the scene of the moichin, of the mindset. Why 3 weeks? The 3 weeks that we're in now, when we start saying these Haftaros, these selection from the prophets that are different, that are not connected necessarily to the Parsha, because they represent the disappearance of the 3 parts of the intellect, Chokhmah, Bina, and Das. And then, וצריך להבין סדר זה מפני מה הסתלקות הוא ג' וההתגלות הוא זין. And then, Sheva de Nechamata, the 7 weeks of consolation, they represent an appearance of a new mindset. Well, if I would tell you, one mindset is leaving and another one is entering. So what would you expect the order to be? 3 and 3. Because something left and something has to take its place. So why is it 3 and 7?
I'm not quite sure if I agree with that. Because sometimes to take longer to.
No. But I'm saying
Once a
it's
day.
not time. It's not time. I'm taking the Chokhmah, Bina, and Das, and I'm taking them out. So now I have to bring Chokhmah and Bina and Das that are new, and so that it should take 3 weeks. Also, same thing. It's not a question of how long it takes. It's how many components you have. So it can't be that it's the same components. And the Rizal says these are not the same components that are coming
The
back.
components can be bigger than the
What?
The incoming can be bigger than the outgoing.
It doesn't matter if they're bigger or smaller. They fit into the same places. There's the same components, Chokhmah, Bina, and Das. But these are not the same components. What left are Chokhmah and Bina and Das. What is coming in is 7, which means it's the emotional traits. And that presents a question. D'inei yadua she'avelut hu inyan istalkut hamochin. When a person is in avel, when a person is in mourning, he loses his previous mindset. When you sat Shiva for your father, your old world disappeared. That was the process that you were going through. When we lose our parents, the old world that we knew is gone. There was a world in which we were children, and even if we were 60, it doesn't matter how old you are. And there was someone who was above you. There was someone who was, in the case of many fathers, it's even who helped you even when you were 60 years old. And in the case of a mother, it's someone who cared for you. And that's gone now, and you don't have that anymore. Va'avelut hu mekor hanechama. And the process of mourning is the source of the consolation. If you don't go through the mourning, you can't be consoled. That's the big novelty of the idea of mourning. D'inei sidran shel hadvarim bederech klal kachu. This is the order normally. כמו שיתבהר אם ירצה השם, אחר כך באריכות על ידי משל כללות הסדר הנ"ל. And as later he will explain even more detail when he does give us the answer. משלמותן של מוחין הקודמים נתעורר במקור מוחין חדשים יותר נעלים. Now listen to what he's saying. The previous mindset has been perfected. It's reached its perfection. Perfection doesn't mean, shlemut doesn't necessarily mean that it's better than anything else. It means that this can no longer give me anything. This is given all it can. It is complete. It is shalem. So, the mindset that I had as a child to parents has served its purpose. I can no longer grow with that mindset. People think that parents pass away because they become old. That's true in and of itself. But the process that I go through as the one who's mourning for them is a process of growth. It's not a process of something died in me. And the way most people look at it is something's gone. It says, no, something goes away, something ascends out of me because I'm ready for a new stage. And there's no more room for the old one. It's the same thing as when, right, if the brain was growing and if your skull was fused as a baby, and some babies are born this way, that they don't have the separation between the parts of the skull. So the brain can't grow. So you have to artificially open it. And then it used to be that they had to maybe artificially open it more than once. Now they do something else. They have this helmet that you wear for the first 18 months after the operation. You do the operation first few months of life, and then it allows it to it holds it together and lets it continue to grow, because most of the brain grows during that time. So if you don't get rid of the shell, your previous mindset is a shell for what you need to achieve now. If you don't get rid of it in time, it hinders the growth, and it actually will suffocate you. Right? So you have to be able, once one stage is finished, to get rid of the whatever it was that was making you grow until now, and you have to start something new. The new mindset always is called mochin de atika. Okay, in Kabbalah the new mindset that's going to come in now is called the mind of Atik, or in this case, Atika. Okay? Atika is, you know what Atika is. Right? There's Atik and Arich. So Atika is the lower part of Atik. Atik itself is 10 sfirot. So Atika is the lower 7. Okay? What are these? These are the two partsufim, the two components of the crown. And it makes sense. Because what are we saying? We're saying there's what I live with consciously, my mindset consciously. It's what I have in my wisdom, understanding, and knowledge right now. And it's allowing me to grow. And as I fulfill and I take advantage of all this mindset can give me, when I deplete it, when it's finished, it has to disappear and I have to get a new mindset. The new mindset comes from the higher part of the crown, because the crown is the source of all our, call it our states of mind in a sense, and not states of mind, it's not the right word. All our mental structures. Okay, all the mental structures in the end, they come from the crown. The crown is not conscious; it's above the consciousness. And so it is like, you can think about it in the same way that the atmosphere above the earth is where the rain comes from. Okay? So once everything's dried out and it's time for a new season, new rains have to come down. So new rains descend from Atika. And he says the order is like this, that once the mindset I have now is depleted, it's served its purpose, it's not going to go away until, in a certain sense, the new mindset is ready. Okay? What is that like also? Same idea with when you get a scab on your skin. It won't fall off until the new skin underneath is ready. It's not completely ready. It's almost ready. It's a little thinner. But the scab is already preventing it from continuing to grow, so the scab falls off and then the new skin grows. The same thing happens in the mind. It's very interesting because in Reb Nachman there's also a Torah like this. He talks about this in a number of places. And here you see the big difference between Chabad and Reb Nachman. Reb Nachman has no details. In general, it's very associative and it's very general. It never gets into details. But he also talks about this. And it becomes a big staple in Breslov also, that I guess your old mindset is finished. It's gone. Now you have to get a new mindset. And people understand this. They live this way.
Isn't that called doing tshuva?
No. Because doing tshuva is a transformation of the person. Here we're not talking about a transformation. The person is not transformed. He doesn't become something different from what he was before. He receives a new mindset. He understands things, the same things, at a higher level. So for instance, you don't change your actions. There's no change in the actions here. The person was frum and he remains frum. He's not going to do something more necessarily tomorrow. He's not going to change his actions in any sense. He might, because the new mindset in the end may lead him to change new things, a few things, but they'll be like tinkering. It's not a transformation of the entire individual. What?
Every piece of extra knowledge should cause a person to take up on more connection to a Kodesh Baruch Hu.
But the connection can be mindful. It doesn't have to necessarily be in action. Could be that he's already doing everything. It's the same. Would be, who's the example of this? I don't think he brings it here, but in Shari Yuchud, he brings it many times. Is Rabbi Zera. When Rabbi Zera came to Eretz Yisrael, he wanted, the Rebbe says in the end he didn't, but he wanted to fast 100 days in order to forget the mindset of Babylon. Because the Torah they were learning in Babylon is not the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. It's not the Torah of the land of Israel. They're different. What do you mean they're different? It's the same text. Yeah, but it's a different mindset altogether. And so he wanted to forget the old one. So what does he do? So he gets rid of the old one. It's like mourning. 100 days of mourning over my past learning, so I can forget it. And now, but of course, you're not allowed to do anything like that because a person is not allowed to forget. So he didn't forget. So what do you say? So in the end, what do we say is he changed his mindset. It's not that he forgot what the Torah says. He didn't forget the Pentateuch. He didn't forget the Mishnah. He didn't forget everything Rav Yehuda was his Rebbe taught him. He remembered everything, but he had to change the mindset. And to change the mindset takes time. So Rabbi Zera didn't become frum when he came to Eretz Yisrael. It was just as frum when he was in Bavel. It was the same thing. So it's not tshuva. It's not a state of tshuva. Tshuva is a whole transformation. It's a completely something else. In any case, this is something. Why did I mention Breslov? Not to say that Reb Nachman doesn't go into details, because he may have known or may have not known. It doesn't matter. The point was that when you live life this way, when you live life with this expectation, that there are periods of time when the old mindset no longer serves you. It's given all it can, and you're waiting for something new, life becomes much more exciting, in my opinion. So I didn't learn Shara Yichud until much later in life, when I was 36 or 37. I'd read Reb Nachman when I was 20. So from age 20 until age 17, I didn't have the details. I didn't know what this process. And again, here he's going to give a very abridged version of the details. But I already lived with the anticipation that every time that I feel that I've taken everything out of the current mindset that I have, I will receive a new mindset. New mochin come down all the time. And that's a big shift from the way that I was thinking when I was earlier. Before that, I thought that all my life would be an accumulation of knowledge and not changes of mindset. That I didn't understand yet. Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow.